I call the meeting back to order. We're now going to move to new business. Item A would be consideration and action on an ordinance of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners amending Chapter 8, Article 4 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinances to provide for appeal from suspension or revocation of license for horse tour operators. Mr. McCree.
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposed amendment to what we know as the Outdoor Tour Operators Ordinance, or some call it the Horse Tour Ordinance. What it will do is add for an appeal provision for outdoor tour operators who have received a certain number of citations such that it will cause them to have a suspension or revocation of their license to operate. The second proposed portion of the amendment is to modify the number of citations that an operator may receive before they receive a suspension. So it will remove 5 or more citations down to 4 or more for a 10-day suspension within a 30-day period. And rather than 10, if a operator receives 6 or more violations in a 30-day period, they will have their license revoked. For the appeal procedure, it's just going to be a very straightforward opportunity for an operator, once they receive a notice of suspension or revocation of their license for receiving a certain number of citations within that 30-day period. They may file an appeal with the clerk to the Board of Commissioners within 7 days of the date of the adverse action that's being appealed. That matter would then come before the Board of Commissioners at its next regularly scheduled meeting thereafter, for you to have, in essence, a quasi-judicial hearing for determination as to whether the suspension or revocation should be upheld. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. McCree?
No questions. I would just ask Mr. McCree if he would to elaborate a little bit about how this come about, if you would.
Well, we originally adopted the ordinance. We didn't put a appeal provision per se within this licensing agreement. First of all, it did not appear that this was a property right such that a due process type of hearing was required. And in the event, the thinking was that if an operator received a citation, they do have an opportunity to have a hearing before a magistrate or a district court judge if they refuse to pay the citation, and the county would thereafter seek to collect it. So there was an opportunity for them to be heard if they so chose. Also, it was written in such a way and at a time when the tour operators appeared to be willing to work with the county and be self-policing of their operations. Recently, a tour operator received 2 violations within a 30-day period, which called for, under the ordinance, a 3-day suspension of the license. When he was noticed with the suspension of the license, he retained an attorney who threatened to take the county, or to sue the county, with regard to his client's suspension. Rather than getting into lengthy litigation over the issue, it was determined it was in the county's best interest to modify the 3-day suspension, and he will incur a 3-day suspension this month to 3 days. And then for the county just to go ahead and amend the ordinance to provide for this process and clear out once and for all any potential challenge to the ordinance and the ability of the county to suspend or revoke a license.
Thank you.
Any questions?
And just one other comment, and the other piece to it as well. I asked Mr. McCree to send it out. As I was reviewing what he had sent me, I mean, it just become, to me, it's ridiculous to allow 10 violations in a 30-day period or 5 violations to get to a suspension thing. I mean, my Lord, if I got 5 tickets in a month, I'd be sitting down here in the Currituck's finest hotel. And so I asked him to modify that. And quite frankly, I think that the 246 is pretty lenient myself. I mean, I asked him to send it out for comment, and I didn't see a whole lot, so I assume the board's satisfied with that. Quite frankly, I could live with 2, 3, and 4. So I would ask for any comments or before we go there, before I make a motion.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. McCree, if I'm a tour operator and I have a violation July 4th, and I appeal it and I push it all the way back to September, and then the season is over, and I'm serving my sentence in the non-season where it's not really affecting my pocketbook, which means no big deal. Can I take, as the board or the governing body that we're going to hear it, and say, next year on that same weekend, you're going to serve your sentence?
I think so. I don't think it's going to be up to the tour operator to make a determination as to when their suspension will be in effect. It seems to me it will be up to the licensing issuing entity, the county, to make that determination.
I'm just concerned that they don't appeal it and prolong it to where it's off-season then.
Sure. Again, I do not think that they have the right or the ability to choose the period of suspension. It will be the license issuing entity, the county. The other thing they also risk is that this ordinance provides that when your license expires, the county's not required to give you another one. So if we end up having issues with operators wanting to push the envelope on things, I mean, there's other ways that the county can deal with that issue as well.
Anyone else? All right, we need a motion.
Hearing no one say they would go for the 2, 3, and 4, I'll make a motion that we approve as written.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion for approval and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Currituck Animal Shelter Operations Model. I believe that is Ms. Worth, Mr. Scanlon, Ms. Maurer.
Good evening. Just make sure we're up to speed. Good evening. I'm Eileen Worth, project coordinator with the county, and Gina Maurer is joining us tonight for this presentation. Gina is our new director of operations of the Animal Services and Control Department. I'm going to start tonight to do the presentation and just offer you some background information, bring you up to speed of where we have gone and where we've been for the last couple of months. Dan will follow up with the budget presentation, and then Gina will wrap up the presentation with her comments. I wanted to start to, on the screen, just show some pictures. This is the current shelter, 5,000 square feet on Airport Road. And this is probably the same map that Peter Bishop showed earlier that shows the airfield, the existing animal shelter, and the proposed animal shelter location across from the Extension office. This is a rendering of the building when it's going to be complete in a couple of months. This is the rear view of the building with the play yards. This is on one side. And these pictures were taken just last week, courtesy of Eric in our engineering department. As you can see, we're well under construction, and it's moving along pretty quickly. Most of the space in this building is dedicated to the animals, with some offices. And this shot here is actually of the Sally Port at one end of the facility that takes up quite a bit of space, but provides safe intake and deliveries and storage. So with that, to bring you up to date and remind you, the board directed the staff several months ago to research some different models for shelter operations and put together a proposed budget in preparation of your May work sessions. The budget portion was presented to you in May for consideration, and after the budget was passed in July, staff was directed to proceed forward with finalizing a budget and the operational plan and bring it back to you at the end of the summer for consideration and final approval. In preparation of the plan, we started our research, and we did several things in that effort. We did tours of the shelters, and we did several of those. 2 of those were in Virginia, very large facilities, very impressive facilities, and we found that they operated 2 of them that we looked at all included animal control officers as part of their staffs. One had an on-staff veterinarian and a fully functioning operating room that provided their spay and neuter and vet services in-house. And one was assisted by their local humane society in providing the spay and neuter services, and those surgeries were handled off-site. These were very impressive facilities and run by municipality and operated by the police departments. Due to population dynamics, that's the model they chose. A third shelter we looked at was in North Carolina, and this was a shelter that was a combination of 3 counties contributing to the efforts of one shelter. This shelter was about the same size as the current shelter that we have now. They are county employees that operate in the shelter. It is owned and allocated, funding's allocated by the 3 counties that share the efforts in this. It'd be impossible if they did it separately. They use a nonprofit, I should say, in their spay and neutering efforts, and that nonprofit, one specific nonprofit, also does their filing of documentation for reimbursement for those services. They have a very small volunteer base because of the dynamics of those 3 counties. So they rely heavily on donations and their nonprofits. We interviewed shelter directors across the state as well, and they and their staffs. We did both. We talked to a lot of people, and we found that the ones that were run by municipalities and local governments did very well, and a lot of that was because they could tap into resources from other departments, which reduced the budgets accordingly. Things like advertising, vehicle pools, public works engineering, maintenance, those kinds of things. Those are all budget busters for the private shelters and the nonprofits. Nonprofits, as we all agree, are huge contributors. All of our research shows that, and they're all contributors to the common goal, the care and welfare of the animals. And the ability to do that becomes overwhelming with the task of running a shelter, paying the bills, managing staff, bookkeeping duties, all of those things, and they add up, and it overrides what their core mission of taking care of the animals. Overcrowding becomes a norm, which places additional strain on the animals, the staff, and the facilities. These folks in the nonprofits are hardworking, dedicated, loving, caring, and very special people, and it's not an easy job, and we recognize that and appreciate that. Their number one concerns with the staffs particularly was it was all about the animals, fostering, finding homes, doing the best they could for these animals that don't ask to be there. Their needs are constant. When you have donations that are low or a low volunteer pool to pull from, it's stressful for the staff. And they expressed a lot of frustration with the lack of community responsibility. People don't spay and neuter their pets. They don't take care of them. It's hard when you work in a shelter to see that kind of thing. The backyard breeders and such are also heavy contributors to the shelters. They're overwhelmed and burned out, and it's a difficult job, no doubt about it. We continued research talking to the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services in Raleigh. They expressed similar comments above, and they actually told us they're seeing a movement across the state and the country toward municipal and county-owned and operated facilities for all the reasons stressed above. Our NC state inspector that comes regularly and has a great relationship with, from what my understanding is, with the current Currituck SPCA and the previous provider, nonprofit provider, as well as Gina and her staff, echoed the similar comments above. And she also said the community issue isn't going away, and we all need to be proactive. And she finds in her work that the counties and towns are taking responsibility and recognizing this more than they have in years past. So they're starting to allocate funding to try and to build better facilities. A lot of our facilities are old and dilapidated, as we know with our current one. I spoke to veterinarians in the area and across the state, and they also echoed similar concerns. And their biggest comment was that they agreed that the shelters are a community issue. Feral cats are a huge issue. Backyard breeders are problematic, and all of these issues will continue if we don't, as a group, and I mean everybody, the community, the county, members in the community, everybody start addressing these issues, because it really stresses the population in the shelters. The Humane Society, we talked to them. They asked for a set of our plans. We shared those. They were very complimentary and applauded the county and the community for making this investment, and said they wish that every county across the state could do the same thing. So we feel very fortunate about that. We reviewed the Animal Welfare Act and legislative updates and multiple other resources as we continued our research. Findings were the operation and management of the animal shelters can be daunting. They're daunting tasks, and many of the facilities are switching their models because of this. It's a lot of stress on the nonprofits. There's continual challenges in managing and maintaining budgets with rising costs of operations. We all experience that even in our personal budgets and businesses. Challenges are even more so when the donations that they use to supplement their allocations start dropping off, or in some counties are non-existent. There's challenges in managing staff and maintaining staff. There's high burnout, and it's, again, a difficult job. Few volunteers, and the volunteer base is always fluid. We appreciate everything they do, but folks are working. It's difficult to stretch your volunteer duties across many needs in a community. The ultimate goal of the operation is the care and well-being of the animal, and that is the ultimate goal of everyone. It's us as the county, the community individually, the nonprofits, the volunteers. It's a critical goal, and it doesn't matter who runs the shelter, operates it, manages it. The ultimate goal is about the animals. They don't ask to be there, and we need to do the best we can to take care of the issues that we have in Currituck. Too often when conflict comes and we forget that we're all in this for the same reason, which I think happens a lot just because of the dynamics of the work, we forget that goal, and we need to stay focused on that as we move forward. Our goals are the same. They should be. Nonprofits play a vital role and are encouraged to continue and support. Let me back that up. The common goal. We need them, we want them, we welcome them, we encourage them. And in spite of what some in the community have been told, we are not shunning the nonprofits from this facility in our proposed budget. We've never stated that. That's never been our position from the beginning. It's dismaying to me that that's even a consideration, and quite opposite. We've stressed that that is not the case. They do play a role. We need them. And we hope that they'll continue to do that. Just like the volunteers, they're welcome at any time. We need them in the facility to be the hands-on care for the animals. They're the ones that take the animals out for a walk and provide the stable, healthy, mentally and physically needs of the animals to get them ready for fostering and sheltering. And while the staff is busy doing other things and trying to work the programming, the more people we have in those shelters, as far as the volunteers and the nonprofits doing their programming, or just coming in and spending an hour or two a day in the kennel or in the cat room, means less time in a cage for an animal. And that is going to be a possibility in this new facility because of the size and the potential that we have. Volunteers, again, the base is fluid. We're always looking for volunteers. They're needed, welcome, and encouraged, and we'll continue with that. And animals, shelters, again, are community issues. It's going to take a community to resolve the issues that we face with these. This building's the first step to making a difference with that. Efforts to resolve some of these issues that I've just talked about. Every community faces it. It's not just Currituck, it's across the board. So the goal is to prioritize the critical needs. And as we found in our research from everyone we talked to, the critical need, number one critical need, is spay and neuter of animals. That cuts down on the population. It's the one that we have addressed first and foremost as we proceed on with this proposal. We're proposing contracted services with a local vet who's offering to provide that service for us. The second critical need that we wanted to add to this is to get some veterinarian attention in the shelter. And this veterinarian has also agreed to do weekly visits to check the population, identify any concerns or animals that might need further treatment. We'll make arrangements to transport them down to the clinic to do that. And he's also available for Gina and her staff for consulting purposes and concerns by phone, email, or during his visits at the shelter. We want to continue our partnerships with the nonprofits and volunteers and push the education piece for awareness of spay and neutering and the other things that are needed in the community. And we can get help with this partnership with the schools as well. Programming at all levels in the community will be addressed and stressed as well, and we'll be able to promote and really establish some good programming in this new larger facility that will help expand what we've already got going on and support the volunteers and nonprofits as they do their events and fundraisers. We'll have the facility available for that purpose as well. The other issue is the collaborative effort that we need to take with the law enforcement and the courts, and to support the efforts in abolishing the backyard breeders and the dogfighting activities. Sadly, these are often the dogs that end up in the shelters, which is sad and something that needs to be addressed. I've added a floor plan here just for a visual to show you the inside of the building. It's impressive, and you can see from the pictures early on, it's going to be a great facility and offer a lot of possibilities and potential. You'll recall, too, at your August 17th meeting, as we move into the staffing part of this, the board approved three things. You approved the creation of the Department of the Animal Services and Control. You approved the Director of Operations position, which Gina was promoted into, and the resolution transferring the supervision, authority, and control of the animal control officers from the sheriff's supervision to the county operations. And on September 1st, Gina was promoted, and she and her staff were officially transferred under the county operations, and we welcomed all of them and appreciate their efforts. Gina will keep her AC credentials, but we will not be filling her position as an animal control officer. So tonight, the staff is proposing this management plan. And as you can see from the slide, we've got the Director of Operations and the 3 animal control officers transferred over. Those are 4 existing positions. We're only proposing to add 3 additional positions: a shelter manager, an animal care tech, and an admin staff assistant at this time. Shelter manager, this position will oversee the day-to-day operations of the shelter and the volunteer programs, event planning, schedule adopt-a-thons, work on the website, social media, advertising in conjunction with some of our other departments. She'll take care of the event calendars and any other duties that Gina may assign to her. Administrative staff assistant is there to support the staff with the administrative duties. He or she will be the first person you see when you get into the facility. They'll be the greeter at the front desk, offering information to visitors and assisting visitors answering phones and assisting with intake when needed. The animal care technician, this is a hands-on in the kennel with the cats and the dogs, overseeing those areas, cleaning, feeding, caring for these cats and dogs. He or she will work with the animals in getting them stable, healthy, socialized, and ready for fostering and adoption. The budget also, in the proposed budget, there's funding allocated to provide additional part-time assistance. This is a common allowance in a couple of the other departments that work 7 days a week or have seasonal employees that they need to add to the base during high peak seasons. Hours of operation, the staff wants to stay open 7 days a week to provide as much opportunity for folks to come in and see the animals, work with the animals, and adopt. Sunday, we would like to wait until 1, so we project to open from 1 to 5, and we would like some flexibility on this. Gina wants to play it out and see how it goes. If the community wishes to have extended hours after 5 o'clock to accommodate their work schedules, we'll certainly be glad to do that, look at that, and extend those hours as we need to. So in summary, county and municipal operated facilities have the ability to do several things. They can manage and operate facilities effectively and efficiently due to the shared resources of other county departments. I mentioned this earlier. We do this on a regular basis every day in between the departments. It reduces the outsourcing for a lot of activities that the private and nonprofit operated shelters have to pay for, or they get donated when it's available. So we have lots of options. We have a vehicle pool. We have a webmaster, public information officer, bookkeeping, maintenance and repairs, event planning and fundraising abilities, all available to us as a resource within our county departments. We're also able to hire a higher level of service, offer a higher level of service to the community, and that option again is adding this veterinarian service to the plan and addressing the number one critical need across the board, which was a spay and neutering program. I feel that we've done that already in this proposal. We've gotten a good start with that, and now we can start focusing on the other things to put into place to support the operation. Vet services for the population check with the veterinarian is also another challenge. All of these things are huge budget challenges for the nonprofits, and they depend on donations to supplement their county and city allocations. And it's difficult, understandably. The county can accept tax-deductible donations. We can and do already. We have several departments, the DSS for adult and services and the children's services. They also do the Operation Santa Claus. Parks and Rec takes in donations for children to assist for those who can't afford to play ball, and some other things. Senior Center for the seniors, the library, and actually Animal Control is already set up and does take donations. We apply for and receive grants on a regular basis. We'll be applying for the reimbursement from the state for the spay and neuter program, and that shouldn't be a problem. We'll have that in place. Parks and Rec, our own admin department, Planning and Community Development, and Public Works have all applied and received grants. We have that availability on a regular basis. Additional revenues, which have not been included in the proposed budget, are down the line, and those will become apparent as we get into the programming. I think we can make a lot of things available through planned programming. And with this proposal of staff and department, getting the department up and running. We can get moving on that pretty quickly. And that is Dan. So that kind of wraps up my part of it. This facility, I'll just say, is going to be awesome. And we are, as a staff, really excited and motivated to see the potential that it will offer. And I think Gina will express that in her wrap-up. The size of it, the technology and everything else is going to make it easier to maintain, and it'll provide the staff the proper tools to properly care for these animals. The environment will be healthier, and it'll be more efficient for staff, volunteers, and the public, much more welcoming. So the ability to offer additional services, programming, and pushing the partnerships and continuing all of those things is the ultimate goal, to take care of these animals, and we need to do that as a community, as the county. We need everybody working together, and we welcome, encourage, and hope that we can continue these relationships. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gina. After I do want to say that's what the proposal is tonight. We're asking the board to approve these 3 new positions so we can move forward, get the staffing in place, so we'll be ready to be up and operating when the shelter opens in November. Not Gina, I'm sorry. Dan, your turn. Thank you.
To undertake the services that Eileen just expressed, we are creating a new department. And although we are currently doing it mid-year, I wanted to go ahead and present to you what we anticipate would be an annual cost of this new department. So on the screen, you're seeing what we believe the combination of the shelter operations and animal control under this new animal service and control budget would be about a $570,000 combined operational cost. Predominantly, that is going to be in salaries and benefits of the staff. You have utilities, telephone, gas, water, electricity, the cost of carrying the building. As Eileen mentioned, we are looking to have a contractual relationship with a local vet, animal care, feeding, medicines, taking care of the animal population, animal control. They have gas, repairs and maintenance to their vehicles, cost of operating animal control. There's always administrative cost, and then capital outlay for the first year. We're looking at some technology, computers, and those kind of things. I know $570,000, it's a significant amount of money, but it's not all new money that we're asking from the Board of Commissioners. I think in a previous meeting, there was a comment that raised that we would have to actually raise taxes, and I told you at that time we would not. And so I want to kind of go into that and show you that, yes, a combined budget of combined department budget of $577,000, but currently animal control has an operating budget of $331,000. So the net increase that we're proposing into this combined budget is $245,000. Now, to kind of put that in perspective of what this would represent is the cost of operating a shelter. And to try to put that in perspective, is it in the ballpark? Is it high? Is it low? What I did is I went and looked at, here is the audited information from independent auditors from 2007 until now, where you can see the several years that Animal Lovers Assistance League operated a facility. 2014, their last year of operating the facility, they did not submit an audit, so I don't have figures for that. Currituck SPCA is just finishing their first year operating it, and their audit actually is not due until the next month or two, so I don't have those figures. But you can see over the years that the cost of operating, this is the gross cost of operating the shelter, in the last 7 years, 2011, $274, $254, $250. So $245,000 appears to be well within the cost of operating a shelter. But that's not all new money either. So one of the things I wanted to do also is going back and looking at, this is how much money each of those years the county contributed to that nonprofit to operate the shelter. And you can see over the last couple of years, we were paying roughly $171,000, $172,000 to a nonprofit to contract to operate it. So in the future, instead of making that payment to the nonprofit, it will be going to our cost of operating the shelter. So you take that $245,000, $172,000 is already built into our budget. We have monies, the adoption fees, the nonprofit now, if you adopt an animal, that those fees stay with the nonprofit. When the county operates it, those fees would come to the county. So based on population, animal population, projected adoption rates, we're looking at a revenue source there. As Eileen mentioned, there's state grants that are available for spade and neuter programs. Depending on what the General Assembly allocates to that grant, you may receive up to 100% of cost of your spade and neuter program. I've conservatively, estimated a very low figure. So what we're looking at is a $30,000 or $40,000, roughly in that range, actual increase into the county budget. This is the additional money that we'll be asking you next year to put into the budget to operate the shelter. At first blush, that kind of sounds like that doesn't kind of sound right, but you start thinking about it. And what I wanted to go back and look at, again, the last audited figures we had was from 2013. I wanted to compare that against our budget of operating the shelter. Taking care of an animal, that cost is pretty fixed regardless of whether it's a nonprofit or the county doing it. Feeding an animal, medicine, the supplies to support an animal, those aren't really going to fluctuate much between who the operator is. So I wanted to compare and see where is this difference. So obviously, county government, we're looking at hiring people. You just heard we're looking to hire 3 people. We do pay full-time salaries. We have benefits. So it will cost the county government more than it would cost a nonprofit to operate the shelter. Comparing, again, their 2013 budget audited figures to what we're projecting for next year, it's about $50,000 more for Currituck County to pay salaries and benefits. However, there are some costs that the nonprofit incurs that the county government does not incur. In 2013, the nonprofit had to pay for some bookkeeping fees. They paid for audit fees. They generally have fundraisers and they do things to generate money to support the nonprofit. Those costs are not costs that the county would have to incur. So the $50,000 can be offset by costs that we would not incur. The other thing is we are operating a significantly larger building, and so we are looking at a significant increase in utility cost. So that really is, when you start looking at the difference between a nonprofit operating and the county operating, that's really where it breaks down. The animal care really isn't going to change much on who operates it. Now, I would argue to you that the increase in utilities, because it is a building that is twice the size of the current shelter, if we were to contract with the shelter operator for next year, their cost would not continue to be in that $250 range. It would go up because they, again, are operating a larger building. But the bottom line is it'll cost us about $30,000 to $40,000 additional. And one other way we can do that is we do, as Eileen mentioned, we have some efficiencies that is built into county operations. We have a already functioning human resources department. We have IT. We have social media department. So those costs that a nonprofit would have to incur is already embedded in what we do. And so we have that support in the new office without incurring additional costs to have those. So the efficiency of county government also helps offset some of these costs. Now, one of the things I did not include in this, to being conservative in putting the budget together, is, as Eileen mentioned, county governments can, and we do, receive tax-deductible contributions. It's not always often that someone will donate to county government, but they can. We receive contributions yearly for, again, as was mentioned, for library services, for Project Santa, in fact, Animal Control has gotten donations. So if people contribute, as Eileen mentioned, it's about the community working together and keeping the focus on the animal population. Because after all, that's what we're all here to talk about, is how to, the best way and the best humane way of treating the animal population. If the community contributes to that effort, this $30,000 to $40,000 can quickly erode down and possibly potentially could go to zero. So the bottom line is tonight you have a budget amendment. Now, it does not literally match these because we're not in a full year of putting this budget together, and we're also looking at some initial costs that we would not have otherwise. But next year in the budget, when we put it together, we're looking at about a $30,000 to $40,000 increase to the county operation, nothing anywhere near that would cost us to have to even consider talking about raising taxes. So that is a quick overview of the budget and the financial perspective. I'm going to let Gina, who has been promoted, and she's going to be responsible for running this whole operation. So I've asked if she would come in and just speak a little bit of her experience and her efforts, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Good evening. I'm Gina Maurer, and I am your new Director of Animal Services and Control. I'm compelled to speak to you tonight in reference to some opinions in our community that are damaging and demeaning to animal control and our department. And I just wanted to shed some light for you on who we are and what our department does. I know that some of you I've gone to school with, and some of our kids have played sports together, and some of you I've helped and assisted with some animal control issues during my 14 years, or all of the above. But I just wanted to shed some light on our department and what we do and who we are. Again, I'm Gina Maurer, and I've lived in Currituck for 35 years. My dad retired from the Air Force and became a commercial fisherman. My family lives in Currituck, and I've been married to Tim Maurer for 28 years. He works at the Currituck County Sheriff's Department. And I have two beautiful children, Courtney, who just graduated from UNCW and lives in Boston, and my son, who works at the Currituck County Detention Center. And they both graduated from Currituck County High School. After a 17-year banking career, I had a midlife crisis, or a calling, if you will, to serve the community and make a difference. I remember one night my daughter and I were watching Animal Planet, which is one of my favorite cable stations, and we were watching the Animal Precinct. And about 6 months prior to the position opening in Currituck, I said to her, "Oh my God, Courtney, that would be an awesome job to make a difference in the community and be a voice for the animals that don't have a choice or a voice." With that being said, they had an animal control officer position that was posted December of 2002, and I was hired in December 2002 for that animal control position. In 2007, I was promoted to sergeant and animal control supervisor, and here I am 8 years later. I'm proud of what I've accomplished and become, and it has been an amazing journey. I am proud and honored to serve the citizens of Currituck County to protect the animals in our county and our community by educating, networking, supplying resources, and enforcement. Just to give you a little heads up, I know you guys got to meet the other three officers. I just wanted to let you know a little bit about them personally as well. Our animal control department has four officers, including myself, and we have a combined total of 35 years of experience with enforcement training, rescuing, rehoming animals, livestock, and exotic animals within our community. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Officer Tammy Capps. Tammy has been employed by the Currituck County Animal Control for 8 years. She has lived in Currituck for 22 years. She received Officer of the Quarter Award by the Currituck County Sheriff's Office by assisting in the arrest of an unregistered sex offender from another state. And her father was animal control officer for 7 years in Bedford County, Pennsylvania. Her mother is currently employed by Bedford County in Pennsylvania Humane Society and has been there for 5 years. Then we have Officer Buddy Grandy. He's been employed by the Currituck County for 8 years. He was employed at the Currituck County Sheriff's Office as a detention officer. He transferred to Animal Control December of 2014, so he's coming on a year with us. And he was born and raised in Currituck. And he was a partner and supported his family livestock and produce business until 2006. Officer Brandon Dozier. He's been employed by Currituck County for 6 years. He was born and raised in Currituck. His family is deep-rooted and has a long history within our community. He knows no strangers and is very proficient with the geographics of Currituck County. Animal Control has directed hundreds of animals and diverted hundreds of animals from our shelter that were rehomed, rescued through various organizations and networks, including 2 large cat seizures. We had a large north end cat seizure and a large south end cat seizure over a number of years. And every one of those cats was diverted from our shelter, and with our partnership with Feline Hope, they were saved and rescued. We work with Blue Collar Kitties to rehome, educate, and rescue injured or unwanted cats in our community. We've had horses, donkeys, goats, chickens, and pigs that were rehomed on farms or petting zoos due to cruelty conditions or owner surrenders where the owners just could not care for them anymore. The most recent was a horse and a donkey that was an owner surrender, and with the guidance and assistance of our state inspector, all 4 horses and the donkey were sent to a rescue and were rehomed. Pythons and lizards that were in a cruelty situation were rescued and rehomed with the local reptile specialist, J.B. Rattles. Exotic birds and parrots that were in another cruelty situation were sent to a bird sanctuary on the East Coast. Numerous dogs were sent to LRCPR, which was Lab Rescue, SIVA, Golden Retriever Rescue, Tail Waggers, Cyber Dog, Roanoke Island Animal Hospital, Moyock Animal Hospital, Eastern Shore Animal Hospital, and other rescue organizations due to cruelty or owner surrenders. We just had a cruelty that Officer Dozier handled. It was a puppy that was in a camper in distress in the heat with no ventilation. Well, we ended up taking that dog out of that situation. We ended up charging for cruelty, and that dog is in a very nice home with Dr. Cronigue and his wife, Tina. Countless injured or abandoned wildlife released and rehabbed. We work closely with the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, and we also work with several local wildlife rehabbers, and a never-ending number of turtles trying to cross the highway or roadway. Animal Control has also assisted and donated personal time and money to all 3 of the nonprofit groups that have managed the Currituck County shelter. Georgia Miller with the Currituck Humane Society, and Ginger Sykes with Animal Lovers Assistance League, and Bev Belcher with the Currituck SPCA, including volunteering and assisting with adoptions and adopt-a-thons, socializing animals, fundraising, transferring dogs out of state to a no-kill shelter. This past week, Officer Capps transferred a blind dog from the Currituck SPCA to a no-kill shelter in Pennsylvania. And we help with the community education in our schools, bottle feeding and fostering unweaned kittens, contributing personal financial support and vet care. Animal Control has assisted and responded to many cruelty grievances that the shelter operators have reported due to information given to them from the community. Sometimes they get a lot of phone calls because for some reason they don't want to be logged in the CAD system through communications, or they want to be under the radar, and people want to reach out and help, but they might not want to be logged in traceable, I guess. So they do get a lot of cruelty calls. Also, state and local ordinance laws or questions or concerns that the shelter operators might have. We have aided the shelter with aggressive and sick animals that were in their custody. All this is above our enforcement duties, our bites, our quarantines, our rabies control, our cruelties, nuisance calls, stray dog calls, vicious animal calls, mutual aid, agency assistance, preparing for court, and running the Currituck County quarantine facility, which houses large seizures and bite quarantines. Your Currituck County Animal Control has worked with various nonprofit operators and rescue groups in the past, and we have full intentions of continuing that relationship in the future. No matter the group or affiliation, our love and support for the animals is the common objective and goal. I am grateful that I could speak to you tonight and that I could introduce you all to a portion or part of your Currituck Animal Services and Control Department and I wanted to allow you to see a part that you might not be aware of that exists within our department. We are enthusiastic and motivated to move in the new direction with the support of the county, citizens, nonprofit groups, and rescue organizations. Thank you. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Gina. Does anyone have any questions?
I'd just like to quickly make a comment. From firsthand experience, thank you, Gina, for all that information. And I know animal control in my neighborhood was called out on a situation this summer. And for a young dog chained up in this 95, 100-degree weather and no shade, no water, and I know animal control intervened. And thankfully, that dog was given a new home, doing well, and I mean, it was just a good rescue of an animal in need, and I just wanted to thank Animal Control for that because I did witness that firsthand.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Gina or Eileen or Dan, if you have questions? I do have several people that signed up for public comment, and they wanted to discuss the animal shelter. What I'd like to do at this time is let y'all come forward at this time on the agenda item and speak, and anyone else that didn't sign up on this issue. The first person we have is John Curti. And just ask you to give your name and address for the record, and Mr. McCree will kind of keep us on the time.
Thank you. It's John Curti. It's 101 Bermuda Lane, Moyock. I had a speech prepared until that last dissertation and a review of all the notes and budgets. You know, I don't understand why we're trying to fix something that finally wasn't broken. Y'all are taking over the shelter now that we've got a group in there that's been doing a phenomenal job of running it. Not only with fundraising, not only with adoption events, care and feeding of the animals, staffing, everything. Y'all do a couple of feasibility studies. You interview with other shelters who are doing things right, and all of a sudden now you know how to run a shelter. Seriously? You got a group there that are doing a pretty damn good job. You're taking over it. This past weekend, our local newspaper put out some numbers. These are not out of my head. These are documented. Tri-County is a local government-run facility. 59% euthanasia rate. That's taking care of our animals. But they did studies too, just like y'all are doing. It's not about studies. It's not about, here's your new job title. It's about what's in your heart. The people that we have doing this now, they're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for government benefits. They're doing it because they love the animals. And we're lucky enough that they have a good leader and another good staff member and other staff members and volunteers who are doing what needs to be done the right way. And none of them did any interviews with people that were doing it before. They're doing it the way they know how. And you all are replacing them. Nothing against the new people that are taking it over. I'm sure they've got plenty of experience running a kennel. Hey, I was a police officer for the Coast Guard. Does that mean I know how to be an animal control officer? No. I have an engineering degree. Does that mean I know how to run a shelter? No. But maybe if I read some books and do some studies, I'll know how to do it too. Do you know what the euthanasia rate was for our current SPCA last year? 12%. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Teresa?
Hello, I'm Therese Curti, 101 Bermuda Lane, Moyock. That was my husband. Very compassionate man. I'm right alongside him. I do see that this facility would be awesome and wonderful, but the people that are being left behind that actually did something, I'm going to cry, sorry, The people that are running it know what they're doing. They're doing a great job. And what they took over that was left in the dust from somebody else that had before, and they brought it to something wonderful. And now they're going to have nothing. Offer them a job. They're so qualified. They know how to take care of these animals. They've been there. They're compassionate with the people. We've adopted 2 animals already, and they take care of things properly. They're right on spot. They welcome people with open arms to help, volunteer, and everybody does the best they can. I've done that myself, and so has my husband. But to leave them in the dust with nothing to offer them a job that they could look forward to and say, okay, I'm getting paid for something that I love, which would be awesome. I think there should be a place for them. And I see there's only a few spots open. You're going to need more people than that. Some of these technicians aren't going to be able to take care of this whole facility in one shift job. You're going to need more than one person. You're going to need another person who's going to do the afternoon shift or the night shift. Who's going to come in when someone's sick? Where are all these backup people? These people could be your backup people. You could pay them, and they could have a job and be proud to work for the SBCA. And it's a wonderful facility. I'm excited about it, and everybody else is excited about it too. But don't turn your backs on them. They deserve something. They don't deserve to be left behind and say, thanks for your job, let's go get somebody else. Because they have an education. No offense. I'm like John. I've never run a shelter or anything like that. I'm not qualified. But, these people started working there and learned. I mean, our new director, she didn't start just saving dogs. She was doing something else, and all of a sudden, let me go do this because I love animals. She have training to go do this? No, she did it. She went in there, and so did the people that are here. So they don't need to be left behind either. They need a job. They deserve it. They've done the best they could. And if you turn your backs on them, you're turning your backs on your own people, your own neighbors, the people that helped you all, help save animals and give them homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ginger Sykes.
I'm Ginger Sykes. I live at 111 Mallard Drive in Currituck. And first I'd like to say that the mission of animal control, and our animal control officers do a superb job, is different than that of operating an animal shelter. That a humane organization has as its core values and its reason to be is to save animals. Animal control does that in a completely different way, as you just heard Gina express so elegantly. And they go out and retrieve animals and prosecute for cruelty cases and do all sorts of wonderful things. But their mission and their goals are not the same as a humane organization. I'm all for us having in our new shelter, as well as we have had in the past, a good turnout and support of volunteers. And as I think several speakers have already mentioned how important the volunteers are. But what you will find if you read the literature is that a lot of times if volunteers are not satisfied with the adoption rates, they don't tend to return. And so that also can float out into the community and hurt adoptions in some ways. Volunteers do enhance the services that a shelter provides, but without a voice in things like the quality of food, the quality of care, they don't feel as engaged as they would if the main organization that was operating the shelter part, not the animal control part, two different things. If the shelter was operated by a humane organization, you will find that volunteers and donors will tend to participate more. And although it may be possible, certainly, for the county to receive grants and donations, I believe if you do your research on that, you'll find that as far as animals are concerned, the highest number of grants actually go to nonprofit humane organizations who have a no-kill or very low-kill shelter. Very few go to counties and to other organizations like Animal Control, for example. Okay, it seems also that we're getting to the point where we have more and more involvement by the county government in numerous facets of our life in the county. And whether that's good or bad, I'm not trying to evaluate that, but I'm just noticing and calling attention to that, and that I'm not sure that we can all be experts in every single field. So I wonder if maybe we're missing the mission that you were perhaps elected to fulfill. And I'm not sure that that was to get more and more government intervention or supervision of all the aspects in the county, or many of the aspects in the county. And just, excuse me, just a few days ago, after the article in the Daily Advance, I believe it was Sunday a week ago, I had a call from a former staff member at the shelter, and she pointed out that we may need to examine more the number of hours that it takes to operate a shelter. And I believe the figure that was given to me was $10,200 in a year, and it appeared that we might be short by about 4,000 hours. And so, again, that would perhaps add to our cost, but that's something I had not thought about examining. I had done it from a standpoint of salaries, and that person pointed that out, and I was in the middle of cooking supper, actually. And I said, could you call me back with a little bit more firm information? And she did. Anyway, I want to read a very brief thing that I gave to you, I think, on the August 4th meeting, but I know that you're very busy. And here is, this is from Sean Owen, who is the president of Cat Rescue in Chesapeake, Virginia. He says, please note that in Southampton Roads, the public shelter with the best adoption rate is the privately contracted City of Portsmouth shelter. This shelter is managed by the Portsmouth Humane Society. Its 2014 low euthanasia rate of 13% is the envy of surrounding richer and more populous cities. The low rate attracts lots of volunteers and donations. They are also adept at using Facebook and Twitter to get the word out about their accomplishments and pets in need. As a nonprofit, the Portsmouth Humane Society has access to free grant money in the tens of thousands of dollars from a number of large corporations, including PetSmart and Petco. Grant money can be used for low-cost spay-neuter, establishing a clinic, and I'm delighted that you have incorporated that in the budget for the new shelter. That is just wonderful news. And so recently the Norfolk SPCA has also done some of this multi-thousand-dollar PetSmart grant money. Each of the nonprofit organizations that have managed Currituck's shelter have also been PetSmart partners. This allows the organization to bring as many dogs and cats to any PetSmart on any weekend. The number that can be brought is limited only by the number of volunteers. Luckily, the Currituck shelter is within an hour's drive of this 1 million population. This allows pet advertising outside of a rural area of 25,000 and saving of more pets, which also pulls volunteers from Southampton Roads to help. You're on the verge of a whole new era with animals and taking care of animals in the right way in this county. But it is my firm belief, and I have taken early retirement from teaching 25 years or so ago so I could devote my life to the most needy among us. Kids have people that speak for them. Animals have nobody. And with that 25 years that I know I have put my heart into this shelter is a blessing come true. And I want it to be the blessing that many hundreds and thousands of people over the years have looked for the welfare and betterment and saving of animals. And after the glow wears off of the new shelter, and we don't have as high a save rate as we would like, I believe you're going to find a real drop in the support for the shelter and for the animals, because people get frustrated when they are walking a dog today. They know it came in a few days ago, and the dog is healthy, happy, and they come back the next day to give the dog treats and walking, and the dog is not among us anymore. So please, consider the heart of the people who are doing this, as one of our speakers a few minutes ago, whom I don't know, mentioned. The heart is what drives the engine here. The humane organizations have that heart and have committed to that for decades. It's not a job, it's a passion. And that should be, I think, encouraged. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Helen Cottrell?
Helen Garrett Cottrell. I live at 155 Launch Landing Road. I'm a relative newcomer in the county. I've only lived here for 30 years, but I still feel a connection to the county. Hey, Ike. What can I say about animal shelter that hadn't been said here tonight? I once worked for the county doing work that I loved, but I left to go to work for a nonprofit. I took a cut in salary. I said to the director, I can give you a year, maybe two, I can live on this salary. Well, I retired from there after 14 years. When you're passionate about what a nonprofit is doing, you don't just quit. You don't just walk away. You stay at it because you want to be there. Now, I understand that the decisions have already been made tonight, and you've got some wonderful people taking over here. I worked with both of them. If there's anything that we in the county can do to help with that volunteer base, then I certainly hope that the new folks in charge will let us know. And I have to tell you this because it's been bugging me forever. I hope we have a low kill rate. I cannot stand the euthanasia. Can't deal. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that wishes to speak on this issue?
I wasn't going to, but I would like to.
Come on.
My name is Beverly Belcher. I live at 126 East Canvasback Drive in Currituck, North Carolina, and I'm currently the director of the SPCA. After listening to everything, I can say that we at the SPCA were very disappointed that we were not talked to when the county was preparing for the new shelter module. I think our opinion should have mattered. We did well as a nonprofit with a youth rate of 12% as compared to the other shelters in the area at 49 to 50% youth rates, with the exception of Outer Banks, SPCA, at 10%, but they did have a $625,000 budget. This information was published in the paper and was obtained from the North Carolina State of Agriculture. We engaged the county and all of the surrounding SPCAs in North Carolina, Virginia, and other states. We were all a team and worked together, so we had a lot of resources and a big support system. Fosters and volunteers were a big part of our organization and our priorities to maintain. So we stayed on the phone every single day with our fosters and our volunteers, making sure they were happy, making sure they felt good with what we were doing, and lining them up for anything that we knew they could help us do, whether it was come walk a dog or go to an adoption event. We are resigned to our county operating the shelter, and we will continue to support the new shelter with a vigor. Let me speak to the kill rates a little bit. I've done a little bit of checking up on that. The Norfolk SPCA is a no-kill shelter. A no-kill shelter means that they take applications for dogs to be brought in. So if you have a dog that you want to give up, you have to fill out an application. You go on a list, usually a wait list, to get your dog in there. That's why it's a no-kill shelter, because they're accepting dogs that are healthy and adoptable. Now, from time to time, they do have to euthanize. For example, if they get a dog in and it does get sick, cannot be helped, or turns out to be a very aggressive dog that it was given up, now it's aggressive, then they may have to euthanize. But they're considered a no-kill shelter. A low-kill shelter is 3% or below. Pretty much, there are no low-kill shelters. There are sanctuaries and rescues that can consider themselves low-kill, 3% or less. We're an open shelter. An open shelter takes in strays, owner surrenders, the seized animals, and returns. People can have adopted from Animal Lovers Assistance League, and we've gotten them back. I mean, that doesn't mean that they weren't doing that job. That means that people will adopt a dog, keep it for a year, and just bring it back with no reason. Now, we do education programs where we sit them down and we'll go into the home, try to help them keep their dog or their cat. We have to consider the overall health and demeanor of the animal and look at the space we have to house them. The SPCA has room for 80 cats and 24 dogs. The new SPCA, I think, and I don't want anyone to quote me, but I think it's 49 dog kennels and 129 or 139 cats, which is pretty awesome. With us having a 12% youth rate and you being able to take in over twice as many dogs as we can house and take in a lot more cats than we can house, then the youth rate should drop below 12%. If everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, because we've only been in there for 13 months. And I basically have the same staff I started with. If there's someone that's not with me, I showed them the door. They did not want to quit. They did not have the same mission that we had, and that was to make the county of Currituck look good. That's why I did this. I want my county to have a fantastic shelter where people can come from all over the place headed to the Outer Banks and know that we have a great animal facility. They may even stop and adopt a dog on the way home. The CSPCA, I'm happy to say that, and I said this before, we will continue, as the Currituck SPCA. I have incorporated as the Currituck SPCA, and I wanted the whole county to know this. We're not going anywhere. We have about 3,300 likes on Facebook. We do not pay somebody to do Facebook. They do it because they're passionate about animals. Our bookkeeping, she does it for me for little or nothing. So we have volunteers that do it out of passion and have done it for a year, and are great, great people. My staff, I have to say, I have to give them a shout out. I can go away for weeks and know that when I come back, everything's going to be exactly the same as when I left. There's no drama. There's not going to be any major problems. Dogs are still going to be getting taken care of. They're going to still be adopted out. They're going to be fostered out. They're still going to be taking kittens home and putting them in their bathtub. When we don't have room for them, they bottle feed them. The puppies, what can I say? Everybody has to have a puppy. I mean, I have a dog from the shelters, as many of you probably do. So they're awesome. They have a passion for it, and I watch that every day. With the strength that they have to do what they need to do that sometimes I cannot do. I have two euthanized, whatever you want to call that word, people that can euthanize, and I have one rabies certified person that does the rabies shots. So we're pretty well staffed. We're going to support you guys to make sure that those rates are low. We will, because it's important to us. It's important to me. I know it's important to my staff. I just hope that the new aura of the shelter continues to pull people in, because that is one of the things that I was absolutely amazed at being in the shelter for the last year. That people would come in the door, and before they were leaving, they're crying, saying, "This was awesome. I loved being here. I want to come back." We'll have community service workers that'll come in, and the look on their face is like, "I don't want to be here. I hate being here." Then they come back as regular volunteers. So I have been amazed at the community, and I want to thank everybody in this community for supporting us and continue to support us so we can continue to support the new shelter. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? I do want to, on behalf of the board, recognize the hard work and efforts that all the volunteers and the volunteer groups have done recently over the years and will continue to do. I am concerned about there being an automatic assumption that because the county's taking it over, we're going in and start becoming a high-kill shelter. Every one of these folks up here, I believe, has animals themselves and are compassionate people and love their animals. I have a shelter cat that I adopted 14 years ago. She's rotten, but we love her. I have a lab, and I care for my animals just like you care for your animals, and I care about those animals just as much as you do. And I think that the board is looking forward to the continued support of the volunteers and those that have got us to where we are today. Collaboratively, we have different groups. The groups need to come together and work collaboratively with our board. That's one of my $3 words. Work with the board, so or the Gina and her staff, and let's make this successful. And it's about the animals. It's not about the shiny new building. It's about the animals and seeing that they get proper care, that we continue with the adoption rates, working with the citizens of this county, and looking after these animals and seeing that they're well taken care of and that they do get an adoption. So I can't speak for the other board members, but I would be highly surprised if anyone sitting up here had a different goal than what you've been doing. And I'd be highly surprised if anyone up here will allow a failure to happen with the operations of the new shelter. So with that, I do thank y'all for your passion and compassion and caring for the animals and the well-being. I think Ms. Sykes said they don't have anyone that speaks for them. They can't speak, so it's up to us and you to continue to speak for the animals. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments or
Mr. Chairman,
questions.
I just want to make a comment as well. You know, I grew up in this county as well, and I had a shelter dog for 16 years, best dog I ever had, hated losing them. And my wife would be the first person to make sure an animal is taken care of. I did a lot of research and a lot of talking as well. I've talked to let me back up. I visited the shelter numerous times with the previous owners, the new owners. I've seen all sorts of conditions there. Talked to many of staff. I talked to recent staff. Some of the comments I received from some of the recent staff was that, facility management takes a lot, especially of a new building of this magnitude. I've been involved with facility management for 30 years. It does take a lot. And one thing I ask staff is we do not need to ask any organization to run a facility when that's not their expertise. Their expertise is with the animals, fundraising, donations. That's where we come in. We're facility managers. We need the volunteers, and I said we're always going to need volunteers. We're going to need, the current staff, previous staff, everybody is going to have to work together to make this thing come out and ultimately take care of the animals. I've even talked to some of the recent facility, shelter people out there, and their concern is, man, we would love to get some of this facility management off of us right now. so they could focus on the core, which is taking care of the animals. And I took all that in consideration. I thought it was very good information that they provided. And I think the staff did a great job of putting something together that's going to incorporate letting the experts in facilities management take care of a high-tech new building, incorporating, bringing in some new workers that understand the animals' adoptions, and bringing the volunteers together. The way I see this, it's going to, we've got to all make this work. And we can gel together. It's all for the animals, get the adoptions going, get the visitations. And, to me, if it's done right, it's going to be a win-win for everybody.
Well said, Mr. Payment. Well said.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess just one other comment, and this would be to echo some of the ones that have already been made. There's nobody, we've all talked, there is nobody on this board that wants to engage in anything but what is the best for the animals. And, we've talked about shelter animals. I violated that a little bit because I had show up at my house a scraggly kitten. I'm not a cat person. I'm allergic to them. And I bypassed the shelter. And I started feeding it milk. It was a pitiful looking thing. And guess what? It wouldn't go away. And $300 later, after the vet trip, he's living in the house now, and I'm allergic to him. I've got a 13-year-old dog that sleeps through the night. If I get up and walk out in the middle of the night, he attacks me. I'm not used to that. He comes, it's not vicious. He whack, whack, no claws, and then scoots back under the table. I'm going, geez. There's nobody here. And there's plenty of anecdotal stories like that, but there's nobody here. We were kind of put in a position, among many other things, of two different groups, ALAL and SPCA, both done. The volunteers are extraordinary. But we were asked to pick one between the two, and even Solomon, we couldn't split the baby. So we tried to put together a model, and this was a consensus among all of us, to let the volunteers be as involved, and in fact, you've heard it over and over again tonight, they have to be involved. They have to do what they do. They have to help to make this work. The people of Currituck County, all the taxpayers, several boards going back almost 10 years, set aside money each year to follow through on a commitment of $2.5 million in a structure. The land and the first year, you see that's well over $3 million. We had a surrounding county that was just lauded for putting $1 million in theirs, and we didn't raise taxes to do it. It was a commitment for boards going back 10 years. And it just come to fruition under us. And it did so without raising taxes on anybody in the county. And it was paid for by all the people in the county. And we took a beating on that too. If anybody here wants to admit it, from people saying, why are you spending that much? That's crazy. No, it's not crazy. As some of you well pointed out, it's an obligation that we have. We should, I think. But there is no intent to make it anything but the best and make it a model for the county. And that's hard. I know that's my commitment, and I would suspect everyone on this board would echo the same thing. We know how important this is. This wasn't some capricious or arbitrary decision. So I'm just telling you, we wouldn't do this if it wasn't for the animals. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say this thing, kind of echo what the other commissioners have said. I, too, thank each and every one of you that have volunteered and served in any capacity with the animals. My passion is for the children of this county and also the animals. And, too, like some of the other commissioners, I have a hard time going to the shelter because every animal that I have ever had has been either an adopted animal or a stray, or, like David, they just happen to end up at your home. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you, and we certainly are committed to making this shelter, the lowest kill possible. We have state statutes that we have to follow, but I would encourage each one of you that have a passion for the animals to continue that, and join the partnership. We're just taking the headaches away so that as my dad says, treats my niece and my nephew as grandchildren, he can play with them and he can sugar them up and then send them home. You still have the opportunity to go and play and encourage the animals, and help socialize them so that they can find a good home and can make it a happy place for a family. So just continue your support, continue what you do best, and just, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do, because like I said, I struggle with going to the shelter because I would bring every single one of them home with me, and I can't do that. So just thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, Mr. Scanlon, what action is it you need from the board tonight?
We do not need any action on new business B. The item you have in front of you next would actually be item C, which would be the approval of the job descriptions that are in your agenda package that reflects the 3 new positions that we were requesting in our presentation of the operations model. And you have those in your agenda package.
All right, Mr. Scanlon has made you aware of what we need tonight.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the job description for department staff positions as presented. I would also like to add to that the formation of a citizen advisory board for the animal shelter to consist of 7 people.
Each commissioner appoints somebody,
Yes.
and they would advise,
The animal shelter to work with the nonprofits, so everybody would
help
have a
with the
voice.
coordination and so forth.
The citizens and the nonprofits would have a voice.
Okay, we have a motion for approval.
I'll second. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Griggs.
Well, you can second it, and then we'll discuss.
I'll second that.
We have a second. All right, discussion.
What would the role? I'm sorry. What would the role be? I mean,
Like
what do you envision the role being?
Like any advisory board, to hear concerns that might be from the nonprofits, from the citizens, from the shelter itself, to work together in harmony. This is a new venture by the county with new buildings and new steps. And with that come new responsibilities. And what better way to do it than to have a voice like we do at other functions such as Whalehead or the senior center or anything else, where you have a voice that you can at least come in there and say, hey, I've had a chance to be able to express myself, and it is a public record.
Any further
My only
questions?
question would be a legal question. Is there anything that we have to do to create another citizen advisory board?
Well, assuming you adopt this motion, then I would like to suggest that staff come back to you with an ordinance that would create such an advisory board like we have with other advisory boards within the ordinance, laying out its structure, how the numbers, how they'd be selected, terms of office, things of that nature, and their purpose for you to consider.
I'd like to add that as an amendment to that, if that's allowed.
Yeah, well, that would be part of the motion as you presented, and,
I'm fine with that.
yeah, any other discussion?
So the focus of the board is to help on the shelter piece of the operations of the facility, correct?
Correct.
Because they're not going to necessarily help direct animal control how to do their job.
That's a left side function. Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to take another 5-minute recess. Call the meeting back to order. At this time, we have board appointments. let's see, we have, for board appointments, I believe, Commissioner Hall, do you have a board appointment tonight?
Yes, I have one for wildlife.
For the game board?
Yes.
Okay.
Curtis Austin,
Curtis Austin.
local fisherman and businessman.
All right. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Commissioner Griggs, do you have an appointment?
I believe it's to Wellhead, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to reappoint Dan Scanlon to the Wellhead. No, I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're engaging in a major project now of bringing to an end the restoration of the boats and constructing a building on site that will be able to house them with already existing money. And I believe his financial acumen will help us going forward on that. So with some apology, I'm just to him, because I know he would rather be here, I'm going to reappoint him.
Okay. And I believe that was all of the appointments tonight.
I think Mary Ann's got one for the game board, don't she?
Do they have to vote for me?
I have one for ABC.
Well, it's a consensus. We
Okay.
haven't discussed that yet.
Okay.
We need to kind of talk about that before we do it.
That's what I'm saying.
Which one's that?
ABC appointment.
So I'll second all of those.
There's another wheelhead.
Well, we need to, all those in favor of Mr. Scanlon being reappointed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then I believe there is 2 ABC appointments.
Let's finish,
Oh.
wait, let's finish the wheelhead first.
Okay.
I would like to renominate Mrs. Hoy, Kimberly Hoy, as a consensus appointment, group appointment.
Okay. All in favor? I believe you've asked others about that anyways. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and is there anyone else?
There was Sharon Twitty was also on our list. Now, I don't know what the
She
status
was
was.
a consensus appointment. I don't know if anyone has someone, or if you want to reappoint. It's up to y'all. We can do that at the next meeting.
I think at least one board member has proffered another name, and so maybe let's discuss that.
Okay, and then I believe my notes say there's an ABC. Is there one consensus or two? Two?
All the
Oh, they're
ABC
all
boards
consensus.
are consensus appointments.
Okay, so we need to have some conversations around those and put those on maybe at the next agenda.
I'd like, we can have discussion now, or do you want to do it separately? I mean, for the ABC.
If you'd like to.
I sent an email out the other day with a name. And I mean, whatever y'all want to do, it's fine with me. But
Amongst us, before we make that appointment, because there's a couple names in the tickler.
All right.
Do we have some applications for the ABC board?
yeah,
We've got a couple, yes, I can forward them.
Okay, and then get Mr. Halls needs to fill out an application too. Has he done an application, Mr. Hall?
No.
He needs to fill out
I'll have
an
that done.
application and get that sent in.
Right.
And then we'll dispose of those at the next meeting.
All right.
Mr. Capps, who I had sent an email out again to everybody, hasn't filled out an application. He has one pending here on site.
He does have one?
Yes. Yeah. I think Leanne sent it to us today, I believe.
I did forward
I
one
didn't see
today.
it.
Yes.
Let's just do them the next board meeting. Give everybody a chance to.
David, you can speak to this. I think, aren't they in somewhat of a push to get these things done? So because of ABC board. That's what I was told. Now, I don't know. Whatever. I'll just leave it alone.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, they continue serving until a new person's appointed.
That's right.
Something to do with their payroll or something. I forget now.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. That's the board appointments. Did you get those,
I did, yes,
Ms.
sir.
Walton? Next item is consent agenda. Commissioner Payment has asked that we pull item 5 out, surplus resolution and authorization for retiring Deputy Ruby Stallings to purchase her service revolver.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and discuss that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only reason why I'd asked to pull that out is just for some discussion on it. It was brought to my attention that some previous deputies had retired in the county, and they were not required to actually purchase their revolver. And it was actually, I guess, given to them and engraved. And I was just questioning, is this, and I'm going to ask the county attorney, I'm not sure if he has an answer on this or not. But,
I do.
Okay, all right, well then good. I'm going to ask you, is this a requirement? Do they have to purchase it, or can they just be given it?
Pursuant to Chapter 20-187-2 of the general statutes, the governing board may award to a retiring law enforcement member their sidearm at a price to be determined by the governing board. So
Most law
it's up
enforcement,
to you.
I'm sorry, most law enforcement mics, it's $1.
Okay, so then the resolution with a dollar figure on it then is a requirement, is what
I
you're
wouldn't say
saying?
a requirement. As I just read,
Well-
it's in your discretion.
Okay.
For the dollar amount.
I do not know what the prior practice has been, but
And you said the previous ones had them engraved?
I was told that a couple other officers had them given to them and they were engraved.
Well, she shouldn't be
so-
treated any different. So,
Do we know that, or are we just?
It was brought to my attention. I don't know all the facts at this moment. It was a sudden discussion about this that I was told I would inquire about. So, if we need to take action on this tonight, I mean, I'll go with the board recommendation, or we can research it.
There you go. That's a good point. There you go. Make a motion to pull it.
Well, and if I could just make a comment, because I served 10 years as a policeman, 22 years as an FBI agent. I felt hurt because the Bureau wouldn't give me my, and we affectionately called them Hoover heaters. And they wouldn't do it because the then sitting Attorney General Janet Reno thought that we would be a danger, or any law enforcement personnel was a danger on the streets, and we couldn't do it. I think it's the least we can do. I think it's the least we can do for a man that's or woman that have put themselves in jeopardy throughout their career. That however we need to do it to satisfy the letter of the law, I think that's the least we can do, and that's my opinion.
well, I think you just go ahead and surplus it for $1 if that meets the general statutes. And
this again is at a price to be determined by the board. So it's up to you.
Pending clarification, if others have been engraved, then we'll get that done as well.
I'll donate the $1. How about that? Is that
There you
cleared up?
go.
All right, then I guess can we adopt this resolution and then look at the engraving piece of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead and make a motion to adopt this resolution.
And just for the record, a Glock 23, I do not believe is a revolver. Is it? Just saying.
Okay. Well, I would like to make a motion then that under the consent agenda, we adopt item number 5 with the resolution as presented, with the addition that we have the firearm engraved before presenting to the officer. And
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we'll dispense with the rest of the consent agenda. We need a motion.
The $1 has been paid to the manager.
Motion
For the
for
record.
approval.
Okay. Have a motion for approval. Have a second?
I second it.
Have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners report. Mr. Idlet?
Nothing.
Mr. Payment?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Beaumont?
2 items. One of them, I would encourage folks, if they're available, 10 o'clock at the new rec facility. Currituck County was successful through, I think, the leadership of Jason Weeks in receiving a $150,000 grant for Play Together, which is to encourage to encourage municipalities to add playground equipment that facilitates children with disabilities the ability to participate at our county's recreational facilities. They will be presenting that check to the county on Friday at 10 o'clock. And then, actually, I'll hold there. That's my... So,
Mr. Hall?
Yes, with the new Citizen Advisory Board for the animal shelters, or excuse me, I would like to take everybody and remind them, go online, fill out the application. Please, we're looking for you, folks. Thank you.
Mr. Griggs?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
I just, Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Gilbert.
I just want to remind everybody that on Friday at noon, the Senior Center will be honoring their volunteers in their volunteer banquet. So those of you that are scheduled to attend, I look forward to seeing you all. But I would remind you that that is happening at 12 o'clock noon on Friday.
I have one thing with, there seems to be in this country a huge amount of disrespect on so many levels with their law enforcement, and those guys are just pumping gas and getting shot, sitting in their cars and getting shot. And I would like for our board to certainly go on record with, I don't know, a letter of support, a resolution of support or something to our law enforcement agencies here in Currituck County, our sheriff's department. We have highway patrolmen out here. We have all kinds of people out here protecting us, rain, sleet, snow, night, day, early, late. And I think it's important that some elected officials start showing some support and getting behind these ladies and gentlemen that are out here answering the call regardless of what it is. So I would like to ask if on our next agenda if we could have some type of resolution of support to just let our law enforcement know that we appreciate their service and what they're doing out here, and maybe present it to the sheriff. I mean, she's our head chief law enforcement officer in Currituck County, just to let her department know that we do support what they're doing.
By all means.
So unless the board objects, that's what I would ask that we do at the next agenda. And with that, county manager's report.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
And unless the board objects, I will go ahead and allow the public comment to go now before we start in the other agenda items. And does anyone object to that? All right, this time I'd like to do the public comments and call on Miss Mary Etheridge.
Good evening. My name is Mary Etheridge, and I live at 846 Shawboro Road in Shawboro. From May the 20th, 1775 through today, North Carolina has been a beacon for independence and freedom. Independence finds its foundation in limited government and individual responsibility. We believe that individuals are best suited to make their own decisions about their welfare. We believe that government can best help people realize their full potential by governing within the principal foundations set by the North Carolina State Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. We know government governs best that governs least and allows individuals to follow their own path to prosperity. The North Carolina Republican Party applauds the efforts of our Republican elected officials in turning back the encroaching powers of government and freeing the people of North Carolina to work towards a bright future. Government should treat all citizens impartially and equally under the law. Invidious discrimination is detrimental to freedom for all individuals, and we oppose it in any form. What I've just read is the preamble and Article 3, Section 4 of the North Carolina Republican 2015 Report on the Platform Committee. On December the 5th, 2011, The Board of Commissioners voted to put a junkyard in my backyard. They did not listen to their own professional planning staff, their planning board, their Board of Adjustment, the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources, or even their own attorney. They went against their own governing principles in approving a junkyard in Shawboro. Quoting Chairman O'Neill, "If an applicant meets all the requirements, we have no option but to approve." So, Mr. Chairman, how can you explain meeting none of the requirements and still approving a junkyard in my backyard? Do you think I, a citizen of Currituck County, was treated impartially and equally under the law? Voters of Currituck, why should you be concerned over my lawsuit or how the county has treated me? Maybe because it could happen to you or your family. I never would have thought that my own county government would cause my family such a financial and emotional hardship. What they did was wrong, they knew it was wrong, and they still know it was wrong. And yes, they can reimburse me for the financial burden they have caused my family. Nowhere in the North Carolina Constitution does it prevent anyone from being reimbursed. And again, changing the meeting time and the agenda order does not benefit voters of Currituck County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Etheridge. Next is Troy Moser.
Good evening. Troy Moser, 112 South Street, Moyock, North Carolina. I'm going to make his brief. 3 points. The animal shelter, a lot of concern, a lot of passion for animals. I wish you would have gave that to the same citizens here in Currituck County on the shooting and shooting laws. Thank you so much for denying me on my private range and the intimidation tactics that you used to get Billy to do that, which was the number one item. I think that was wrong. And I think all of it's here know it's wrong. And then I'm going to quote somebody on this board that said, what is right, moral, and ethical is illegal. And what's wrong, immoral, and unethical is legal. And I'll leave it at that. The second thing that I'd like to introduce and get is the Freedom of Information Act that I filed with Ben Woody several weeks ago, asking about the conversations, emails, text messages concerning the Currituck Shooting Club, the property, and the county commissioners, the planning board. I haven't received one email. I've received a clarification, which we clarified, but I still have not received anything. And the Board of Ethics, North Carolina Ethics, is also interested. The other thing that I would like to address was sent to me today about 5:07. It was from Karen Minkoff of Town Bank, and she's a corporate administrator, and I want to quote her on a policy. It says, "Dear Mr. Moser," my arms aren't long enough anymore, "the bank's policy with regard to public and appointed office is employees and staff of Town Bank and subsidiaries are prohibited from running for or occupying any elected public office. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. I want to know what makes you exempt."
Because I don't work for Town Bank, maybe.
A subsidiary?
I don't
I think
know.
you need to clarify your position.
I think my position
Thank you very
is
much.
clear. Thank you. Mr. McCree, what's the status on the emails request?
My understanding is the staff is still working through that request. Under the general statutes, the county does have a reasonable time in which to respond to public records requests, and my understanding is that the relevant departments have been working diligently to discover or find whatever documents are responsive to the request.
And we anticipate there'll be...
I did clarify the request from Mr. Moser. Last week, after doing so, I put together a request to an IT department for an email search, and of course I gave them subject lines, search terms, etc. So it probably ends up being 30 or 40 subject areas she's going to have to search through the email records to pull. But it's underway, and I'll verify tomorrow when it's going to be done. But in fairness to the IT staff, they didn't get the full request until late last week.
Okay,
I would have to assume it'll be momentarily.
All right. Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that wishes to speak? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comments and move to the next agenda item, which is we need to recess the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene as the Tourism Development Authority.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Krugler, are you going to take this item?
Well, she's actually on the TDA, so she is going to come up and join you.
So, Mr. Scanlon, are you going to take this item?
I'll take this item. You actually have 3 budget amendments in your agenda package for your consideration as the TDA. The first one is we are in the process of executing the contract for an economic development study up in the Moyac area that we have talked about. You have a budget amendment in your package to support the execution of that contract. You have a second budget amendment, which is to carry forward into the 2015-16 fiscal year projects that were funded last year that were not completed at June 30th. That budget would have lapsed. So we need to bring that funding forward from last year's budget into this year's budget. In the budget amendment, you actually have a listing of what those projects are. And the last one is a budget amendment for the 2015-16 years to reflect the contractual escalation that was allowed in the lifeguard contract that is about a 5-year contract, and we're going into year 2. And you have all 3 of those in your agenda package, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on any one of those. Explain
the lifeguard
piece a little further, if you would. We executed a 5-year contract with Lighthouse Resort that laid out each year what the cost of that contract was yearly. Right. And when the budget was put together, what was budgeted was the year 1 amount, not the year 2 amount of that contract. So you're seeing an adjustment to bump that up to what the year 2 is.
Second year was a little more.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Anyone else? All right, we need a motion.
Motion for approval.
I have a motion for approval. We have a second.
I second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Need a motion to adjourn the Tourism Development Authority meeting and reconvene as the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District Board.
I make that motion.
Can I have a
Second that motion.
Second. All in favor, aye.
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 No? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll handle this one also.
Thank you, Ms. Kugler. You did well.
This is an item that, or a procedure that we should be undertaking. The Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District is actually a legal entity, much like you just sat as the TDA. The Ocean Sands District is a body politic, just like you are, although you're sitting. So this is another position you will serve, a different hat, so to say. So tonight we're asking, because we did not ask you to sit when we adopted the 2015-16 year budget, we're asking you tonight to sit as the Ocean Sands Advisory Board, or excuse me, the District Board, to ratify the budget for 2015-16 year. At your last agenda, your last meeting, you approved the contract with Hatchell Concrete to do the Phase 1 replacement of the Ocean Sands wastewater treatment plant. We're asking you tonight to also recognize and ratify that contract. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of the manager? Hearing none, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the ratification of our budget, the approval of the amendments, the ratification of Hatchell Concrete, Inc., and the contract for Phase 1 and the replacement project.
Have a motion for approval. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to adjourn the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District Board and reconvene as the Currituck County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
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 All right, the last agenda item is closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11A3 to consult with the county attorney and to preserve the attorney-client privilege regarding the matter captioned Swan Beach Corolla LLC versus Currituck County and other matters.
So moved.
Have a motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.